We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. This episode is brought to you by Picta's brand new photo organization community, aptly titled the Photo Decluttering Community. Picta is a photo printing service who wants to make sure you make room for the memories you truly love by decluttering the rest. I couldn't love that more. This Facebook group will help you free up space on your devices so you can continue documenting your memories without worrying you won't have room. And they offer weekly challenges with prizes and tons of support to make organizing your pictures actually fun. Join this community for free by searching the Photo Decluttering Community on Facebook. And when you join, you'll get 40% off site-wide for Picta's photo printing services by stating that you learned about the group from the Paring Down podcast. You can also get the direct link to join in the show notes of this episode. Speaking of episodes, let's dive into the one I have for you today. Welcome back to Paring Down, everyone. I am Shannon, and today we are diving into organization. You guys know that I am a decluttering gal, but organization definitely falls in with decluttering, obviously. And I don't think we've ever really done a deep dive of like how to organize your home on a practical level. And so I'm really excited to bring someone to you today that I've been following online for years and years before I had the Paring Down platform. So I am a huge fan, and her name is Kenika Williams. She is Tidied by K. And she has all of the wisdom in the world when it comes to how to organize your home, manage all of that different product, what tips and, tricks to do, also what, things to avoid. It's a great conversation. You're going to love her. So Kenika is an Atlanta-based professional home organizer and business coach. She just has this natural eye for functional aesthetics, how those two things go hand in hand, making it really, really useful, how you set up your space, and also really, really beautiful. And she just has a huge heart for helping others. She really blends her passion for education, organization, and productivity to serve her clients and community by gifting really this resource of time to those who need it and want it and say, I don't know how to go about organizing my house. I don't have time to do it. And she comes in and makes it happen. So you're going to love hearing from her today. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Kenika Williams. Kenika, thank you so much for being here. I just told you how excited I am to have you on the show because I've been following you long before I started my own decluttering account. So it's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be joining.
Awesome. Well, can you tell everyone who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yes. So my name is Kenika Williams. I am a professional organizer based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I launched my organizing company, Tidied by K, back in 2019. And our focus is helping clients, busy families, busy women, declutter and create systems, organizing systems and solutions for their home. And yeah, like I said, we've been doing it for about 5 years and we absolutely adore our work.
That's so great. Yeah, the busy moms and just busy women in general, man, I have found that as my own platform has grown, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's all of us. Again, everybody wants a more organized home. This is such a great service that you offer. So I love that. And what made you get into organizing? Why did you start this business?
People ask me this all the time. I was looking for a side hustle, looking to do something on the side from my corporate job. My corporate background is in data and finance. And so just on the side, I'm like trying to figure out what I can do. Really big into fitness. So I thought maybe I could be a personal trainer. I'm really big into, it's very random, but knitting. My grandma taught me how to knit when I was 12. And so I'm like, oh, I can do like an Etsy shop, sell my patterns and, the whole shebang. And it just wasn't not something that I felt truly passionate about. My mom at the time was like, you should watch this show on Netflix. It was the Marie Kondo show, Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. I watched maybe a couple of episodes and I was like, this is it. I'm going to just go all in this organizing thing. I started researching it. want to say I watched the show on a Friday, and Monday I was like filing for an LLC. I had come up with a business name, and I have just been going at it ever since.
Okay, so you're a go-getter, which I love. I'm kind of the same way. People are like, "Oh, how long did you come up with the podcast before you started it?" And I was like, a week."
Right.
You know, like I totally dive in. So have you always been like a naturally organized person? Is this something that comes naturally?
I always have been organized. I was the kid that was color coordinating my notebooks. I was color coordinating my clothes. I was, the designated, grocery person to unload the groceries and put them in the pantry. Like, this has always been something that I enjoyed. So the fact that this is an industry is like truly meant for me. So always been tidied and neat.
Okay, I totally feel the same way. I feel like I went through so much of my young adulthood trying to figure out what's my passion and like how can I tie that into work. And I'm a singer, and so people always would be like, well, go back to New York, because I used to live in New York pursuing Broadway and all that. And I'm like, it's not it, and I couldn't figure it out. And similar to you, when I watched Tidy Up with Marie Kondo, and then of course the home edit came out and all of that, I started doing that around my own house. And I was like, oh yeah, I love this. I've always loved this. This is, when I was in high school, my favorite time of year was the beginning of back to school. I had all my stuff organized and it was beautiful, and I'd love doing my room. Even when I gave my mom a hard time, the satisfaction of a decluttered and organized room, and so as I started doing it, I was like, I could do this forever and ever. It's so relaxing. Why don't I just build my platform around this? So I feel like we're kindred spirits in that. And it's so fun. Like you said, that this is a thing. It's so cool. People want information about it. I'm like, I got you, girl. Okay, so on this podcast, we talk a lot about, of course, decluttering. That's kind of the approach that I take to living a pared down lifestyle. But an important part of decluttering is also linked to organization. And I don't think we've ever really done an episode that deep dives into organization. So I'd love to focus on that with you today, just practical organization steps and advice to make people's homes functional and beautiful, which you do so well. Everyone, you should go follow her Instagram. Your before and afters are like addicting to me. It's like such a dopamine hit when I see your work. I'm like, yes. So first of all, what is the goal of a highly organized space?
The overarching goal is for your space to be functional. You need a functional space system that is going to allow you to access what you need when you need it. It needs to be practical. It's going to be able to keep up with the, everyday influx of just your day-to-day routine. If you have a family and you are out and about and you are maybe getting your hair done and someone calls you and like, hey, where's this whatever? Can you specifically say, oh, look in this cabinet, it's going to be in the bin on the left, right? Like functional, practical, accessible. Like these are the core principles that I believe really dictate if a space is going to be organized or not.
Oh, that's such a good question for determining if your space is organized. Can you get a random call and know exactly where it is? It actually reminds me of like, let's say I'm in Walmart and I ask someone where something is. All the employees usually, right? They can say, oh, it's on aisle 7, here and there, because it's a store. So of course it is highly organized. And so I love that question. We should be able to do that in our own homes as well. That's so smart. The first big question is, how do you decide where things go? I know this is a loaded one, but I want to hear what you say.
Yes, loaded question. So this is assuming you've already decluttered, right? And what you're trying to find a home for is something that you absolutely love, use, and need, and it just needs to have a placement. I think it depends on what that item is, obviously, but then also the objective of the space that you are trying to find a home for. So if, for instance, I live in a small home, I have a 1,000 square foot home. And so because my space is small, I really have to make sure that my furniture pieces, my spaces are kind of multi-purpose, right? So like my living room is not just going to be for like my living room furniture. I have like my board games in there. I have my dog's toys in there. I have throw blankets in there. I have some sentimental things from like press opportunities that I've had. They're stored in the living room. So it has to make sense, again, based off of what you own and the space that you have. But I think one question that you can kind of prompt yourself with is, what is the objective of the space? And does this item naturally make sense in that space?
That's such a good question. It feels obvious, but as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, Oh, sometimes we just let things creep in that absolutely have nothing to do with the objective of a space, even if it's a multi-purpose room. So I'm actually looking at my room right now, which is totally multi-purpose because it's my bedroom. It's also my podcast studio, obviously, as you see me sitting here, And so I look around and I'm like, what is in here that maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? And like right now, something that I haven't put away or dealt with is similar to you, a media it's a program book from when I was a keynote speaker, right? And I haven't put that where my sentimental items go, or there's a frame that I need to put on the wall and stuff. And so that's what makes the room start to not be organized, is when the things are there that are not part of the functional space. So this space for us, a bedroom, is for sleeping. You got your bed and then my podcast studio. And if there's something in here that doesn't, fit that bill, or getting dressed probably is another one, then it shouldn't be in here. So I love that answer. It's really smart. On a more kind of maybe specific level, I was thinking about the kitchen as I was putting together these questions. And I was like, okay, let's say we're in my kitchen. The one thing that I laugh at everyone's house is I never know which drawer is going to have their silverware, right? And I open it, and sometimes I'll go to someone's house and be like, why would they put their silverware here? That's such a weird drawer for silverware. So I'm curious, let's get really specific here. In a kitchen, is there something where you're like, okay, yes, silverware should always go in this type of drawer, or your plates or your cups should always go in this specific cupboard? Do you have something like that?
Yes, depending on the kitchen, because every space is obviously different, and kitchens, I kid you not, have to be one of the most challenging spaces to organize, especially some of like the new builds where like they're focusing on making it so pretty and it's not the most functional. So now you only have like 3, drawers for utensils, and all of them are away from the dishwasher. So if in an ideal world, I always try to put utensils, especially like forks, spoons, butter knives, things that you're going to be using on a daily basis, I try to put them closer to the dishwasher. As you're unloading the dishwasher, they're easy to put up, and vice versa. And the same thing for your plates, bowls, cups. If there's a cabinet above your dishwasher where it's easily accessible, again, practical, and it's going to be functional on a day-to-day basis, that's where I try to load those things. Sometimes it doesn't always work that way, but if you do have a kitchen where like the actual zones of the kitchen make sense, 100% put the utensils next to your dishwasher, and the same for your cups, plates, bowls, and things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. And, it's not from a place of judgment. I think that sometimes when people move into a home, first of all, your point about the houses and the way that they're built, my husband and I, we rant about this all the time because we're in a newer build. We're military, so we move all the time. So The house we happen to be in right now is newer. And we laugh because the kitchen is clearly just 100% to make buyers walk in and be like, wow, there's a big kitchen island here. But there's no functionality or anything that makes sense when it comes to it. Even the island itself is so stupidly big that you can't even reach really the center. So it's just like a wasted foot of space, and it's just for show. It drives me crazy. But yes, that makes sense to me to put things kind of near the dishwasher. But from a place of not judging, I think a lot of times when people move into a house, they kind of just throw things in a drawer and think, I'll go back and put it where it makes sense eventually. And then life happens and they never put it kind of where it needs to go. And so if someone wants to do like a big reorganization of their space, let's take the kitchen because we're talking about that. They say, I've lived in this house for 10 years. My silverware is still in the side drawer that comes out of the island for no specific reason. And I know I need to move it, but then that means, of course, I have to take everything out of the drawer that it should go in. And it just kind of creates this giant mess. How do you suggest they approach a big reorganization like that?
I know this is going to be a little bit off topic to your question, maybe not off topic fully, but I am such a strong proponent in starting small. Kitchens, like I said at the start of this, kitchens, I believe as an organizer, are one of the harder spaces to organize in your home because it's like Tetris. So if you can, I would recommend starting small, starting with maybe even another space where you can kind of develop this muscle of starting a project and finishing that project. Once you kind of get comfortable and you're like, okay, I can definitely tackle the kitchen and I'm ready to get started, start in categories, I would say. So maybe you're only going to focus on the drawers, which is primarily going to be like your utensils, right? And this again is assuming that you've already decluttered and you're not, trying to organize things that truly don't serve you or the space. So once you have that, start in categories, maybe start with just your utensils. And then once you get that organized, then start in another category. Maybe you're going to work on your pots and pans. You're going to match all of your lids to the bottoms of the pots and create systems and structures that way. But like I said, start small, develop that organizing muscle to be able to finish a space in terms of creating systems and structure. And then from there, start in categories. But I would probably say utensils are probably going to be a simpler category to, accomplish versus pulling out your entire kitchen and trying to organize your kitchen.
Yes, because I think with decluttering or organizing, a lot of times people don't start because they're paralyzed and they think that it's so overwhelming. And you do see the Marie Kondo approaches of the world, which I think are awesome too, right? There's a place for every type of approach, but to take everything out feels like, oh gosh, there's no way, right? And so I love that idea of zoning way down, categorizing way small, and going a little bit at a time. And since you mentioned it, what would be a good spot that you recommend starting for someone who hasn't built that organizing muscle? Like which room or area in their house would you suggest?
I think linen closets are simple. I think guest rooms are simple, can be, depending on like how you utilize that space. I think bathrooms can be simple, especially if you are, again, doing smaller categories. Maybe you're just going to focus on face care products, or you're just going to focus on makeup, or you're just going to focus on hair care, and then kind of create systems and structure that way. But for sure, linen closets, I think, are going to be an easier space to tackle. Potentially other categories like board games or books, things like that. So sometimes it's easier to focus on categories versus a full space. But for me, the name of the game, especially if someone is going to DIY this process, is to develop the muscle, similarly to how you have to develop the muscle of like decluttering and getting on a good schedule to like practice this exercise. I think it's going to be comparable to organizing as well. Get good at organizing categories of things, and then you can kind of graduate to focusing on bigger, more complete spaces, and then go tackle the kitchens, the garages, your closets, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is exactly the same approach that I personally kind of promote for decluttering as well. So yeah, they definitely go hand in hand, right? Because if you want to organize, let's say your sock drawer, you're going to kind of get rid of the ones you don't want. You have to take it all out a little at a time, but that's so much easier. And then you put back in, the black socks go together and the white socks go together and the, whatever goes together. But you're not saying I'm going to declutter my entire closet in one fell swoop, because again, that would be a mission, which you can do. Right. And sometimes we need that big win, but yeah, it's building that muscle for sure. What is one area of the home that you notice a lot of people really struggle with keeping organized?
Ooh, paper. Home office, wherever paper ends up in your home, honestly. It could be in your kitchen, it could be in your dining room, living room, wherever paper will collect in your home is typically one of the bigger challenges that I see my clients face. Sometimes it's a matter of them trying to get started. They get plastic grocery bags. They'll put all the paper in there with like this goal of, I'm going to tackle it. And it just kind of ends up scattered throughout the house. I would say paper is probably one of the more challenging spaces. And so whether that's in your home office or just throughout your home, that would be a challenge for a lot of people.
Funny you say that, Kenika, because literally my next question is, paperwork has been coming up as a struggle for my audience lately. So how would you approach decluttering organizing more so, but also that involves decluttering, but how would you approach organizing mail specifically? Let's start with mail and influx of what's coming in.
So in terms of what's coming in, you are the gatekeeper of what you decide to keep versus not. So when you are checking your mail, if it is junk mail, it literally does not even need to come in the house. Drop it in the trash before you even come in, rip it up, do whatever you have to do. But try to limit the paper because once it kind of starts trickling in, it is a beast. So that would be the first thing. If you can go paperless with things, do that. Digital clutter is its own thing, but to the extent that you can limit the paper that's coming in, I would 100% recommend that. The paper that is absolutely necessary for you to have for tracking medical stuff, important documents, figure out a drop zone area where as you're coming in the house, if you're not going to handle it right then and there, you have a natural home for it to go. So for instance, when I first walk in my door, I have like a little piece of furniture that's really intended to store like my tennis shoes, because I don't, I take them off when I walk in the house. But the top of that, I have like a little tray that has my paper, and once a week, as I'm coming in, once a week, I'll double check and look through the paperwork. If it's something that I've already taken care of, I'll write paid on it or dealt with or whatever, and I'll file it away. If it's something that I don't need to keep, I will shred it or recycle it. So try to develop a system that makes sense for you in terms of like your natural flow of how you enter the house. Paper that's already home and already kind of been scattered around, I literally say take 30 minutes a day, not anything too overwhelming. So like you don't need to dedicate the entire weekend to do this, but maybe 30 minutes a day, even 15 minutes a day to kind of sift through a small pile of paper and figure out what to do with it, whether you're going to file it away, shred it, or recycle. But try to dedicate 30 minutes to create some type of routine to manage your paper until it's all managed.
Yeah. That reminds me of the saying in the decluttering world that clutter is just postponed decisions. And I think paper can feel really overwhelming because it requires you to read and to open and there's a lot of steps to it that our tired brains at the end of the day just don't want to do, right? And because you have to really like digest information that is on the page. It's different than just like seeing something, around the house that's or trash or clutter or something that you can just like pick up and be like, okay, my daughter never plays with this teddy bear. But instead you actually have to like read a sentence and like digest what that means and what you have to do with it. And so we postpone it. It's a postponed decision. So I like what you say about that, is to just take those 15 minutes and go through a small pile and make the decisions right then. I think that's key, instead of being like, oh, I'm going to put this in a decision pile. It's already in a decision pile. If it is sitting around your house, that's the decision pile, is kind of the way I see it. Do you have any, I guess, I know it's probably just a little bit of self-discipline, but when you said that when you have your tray and you kind of go through it once a week, how do you make yourself do that? Do you have like a day of the week that you're like, it's Monday, it's paper day, or is it kind of, oh, my tray's full, I need to go through it? I think a lot of us, for me, I used to have a tray and then I would just let it build up because it would feel more and more overwhelming the more I'd throw in there. And then next thing you know, I'd have like 6 months worth of mail or paper that need to be filed. And I'm like, I hope that there's no bills that need to be paid, because I just couldn't bring myself to go through it. So now for me, I personally have to go through it the second I bring it in. The trick for me is we only check our mailbox maybe 2 or 3 times a week now, so that when it does come in, that is when I have to take care of it immediately. And most of it goes in the trash anyway, so it's fine. So I have kind of like forced myself to do that. But for those who it's not feasible for them to go through it every single day, how do you force yourself to get to that tray once a week?
Schedule it. Okay. I am a very structured person, so I schedule things. If it's not on my calendar, it probably is not happening. So for me, I just kind of block my schedule. So like, I know after this, I'm going to the grocery store to get my meals, or like my food for the week so that I can meal prep, right? So things are just pretty scheduled. I think if you can start putting things on your schedule, it's going to be helpful. And then you just have to stick to whatever you put on your schedule. So make it realistic. If you know I'm only going to want to do this once a week, then just put it on your calendar for once a week for the 15-30 minutes that it's going to require you to sit down and actually sift through the mail. If once a week even feels too daunting, then do it maybe every 10 days I'm going to go through, or every 2 weeks I'm going to go through it and look at it. If that makes sense for like your lifestyle and the amount of like mail that you're getting. But yeah, I think putting things on your schedule, blocking out time is going to be your best friend, especially if you need like that visual and mental cue to like get something done.
Right. Like, oh yeah, reminder, you have that pile of papers you need to do. Yeah. And I love that. I use time blocking. I actually have an entire episode about time blocking because it is what keeps my life on track. And like you said, you can use it for the smallest of things, like check the mail and go through the mail. And if you do it once a week, it'll take 5 minutes, and I think about habit stacking, like, okay, you get used to it on Sunday nights, whatever, you sit down to watch your favorite show, and that in the first 5 minutes, you're also just kind of like thumbing through the paper for the week, right? Like building these habits on top of other habits you already have. So Thank you for diving into paperwork because, like I said, that really has been something that my audience has been asking me a lot about. And so I was like, let me talk to someone who knows what they're talking about. Okay, so another one that I hear a lot about is clothing organization being something that's a bit of a struggle. So do you recommend organizing by color, by season, by event? Like, how do you approach clothes?
It depends on what I love about organizing is that it is based off of your specific lifestyle, your needs, your space, and what you have. So it's not a one size fits all process. So it again is going to determine, like, the organizing system that you set up is going to be determined off of what truly makes sense for you, your day to day, and your space. So depends. If I have a client that does a lot of events and they have a lot of formal wear, I organize it by color and by style. So long sleeve, short sleeve, halter top, and then by color, right? So it will set it up that way. If I have a client that has a small home, but they have a lot of clothes, or a small closet, but they have a lot of clothes, we'll organize it by season. So if it's, summertime, we're going to take all their winter stuff out, fold it neatly and store it away. And then when the season turns, we'll swap the stuff out. So it depends on the lifestyle, depends on the client. For me, again, like I said, I have a small space, a small home. All of my casual, like normal wear clothes are in my closet. My jackets, my sweaters, thicker things, they're in my guest room closet because they just don't fit. So it's not a one size fits all, but finding a system that makes sense for you and, making sure that obviously you are only trying to organize what you absolutely love and wear is going to be, paramount.
Yeah. A little bit of, I feel like, trial and error might be the case too, because you might not know what will work for you. I didn't, when I started and I organized my closet, I loved the idea of going by color. And I did generally try and kind of keep it by season-ish, right? Like you said, going by season and then by color. And then I found that I was having a hard time getting dressed. And I was like, why is this, right? And I realized I needed to keep really specific types of clothes. Like, this is what I wear to church, or this is what I wear on a daily basis to here, or whatever. And some of those might be in the same season, but they didn't need to be color and next to each other. Because if I have a pink church dress next to like a pink jumper that's really casual that I wear around town, it made it hard for me to look through my clothes and easily see what am I going to put on for church today, but I think there's other people that they visualize their wardrobe by color. And so they're like, I want to wear that blue dress to church today. And so they go to the blue section and get it out. And all of our brains work so differently. So I appreciate you pointing out that it's not going to be one size fits all. So whatever you see on an organizing show or on Instagram or whatever, it might work really excellent for that person, but that doesn't mean it will for you. You can try it and then see if it feels good or not. But if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean you're just doomed to being disorganized.
Right. Exactly.
So let's move on to product, because product is like this organizational thing that, like, the decluttering world and the organizational world, I feel like they like come to a head and over product, like the declutterers of the world are like, you don't need product, just get rid of your stuff. And then the organizers are like, but you should probably have product to make your stuff easily usable, And so I just think it's like this funny thing. And side note, I've got to tell you this story before I dive in. So before I had my own platform or anything, like I said, I was like really starting to get into the decluttering and organizing world. And I was watching the home edit and I had drank like a wee bit too much wine, someone might say. And I was sitting there and I ordered like a ridiculous amount of product. And it was just, the decanters for the cereal and Lazy Susans and like bins for my pantry. And it all like arrived at one time. And so I took this video of it because my husband and I were cracking up. We were like, what did you do? I was like, I don't know what I did. Like, what was I thinking? And so I took this video of it and I tagged the home edit, and then they reposted it on their stories. And this was like the height of home edit. And so all of a sudden I had this influx of like followers that were actually following me for like organizing content. And I had to be like, no. Like, I just drunkenly I just bought a bunch of products. Like, you're here for the wrong reason. But anyway, so funny. So let's talk about it. What would be the first step in choosing the right product for a space? Because girl, I chose the wrong ones. I got rid of most of that stuff that I ordered.
Again, choosing the right products for a space. When you are trying to organize a space, if you get nothing else from this podcast or from this episode, it needs to be practical, functional, and accessible, right? So whatever system you are establishing, those three things need to be true. So sometimes organizing products will help you ensure that those things are practical, functional, and accessible. Sometimes it's overkill and you don't need products. So figuring out, like, if I bring in this bin, is it going to make this space functional, practical, and accessible? That's it. Sometimes it's like, no, it's fine how it is. It's going to be functional, accessible, practical, just the way that it is without any product. All I need to do is just fold these towels and it's fine, right? So depending on the space, sometimes people want the product for the look. Not sometimes, a lot of times people want the product for the look. And so that's where it's more so like, what type of space do you want to have? So I don't know, does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I think what you're speaking to is like, there's kind of two different camps and you have to figure out where you fall. Like, do you just value the functionality of your organization, or are aesthetics important to you as well, which is totally fine. You know, like that's a great thing if you like your drawers to look a certain way or whatever it is. For me personally, I've found that I fall somewhere in the middle. Of course, I want an aesthetically pleasing home, but also I think I scarred myself by buying so much product that didn't work. Now I'm just like, oh no. But there's some product in my house that like works so well. So my daughter has these, actually, 2 out of my 3 kids have these drawer divider organizer situations. They kind of look like a shoebox. And so for little kid clothing, I have found that if I just said, I'm going to put t-shirts on the left of her drawer and shorts on the right, she would get dressed for school and it would just be chaos. It would all just get mixed up and it was crazy. But just by having these smaller bins inside of her drawers, she knows that her shirts go in one, her shorts go in one, and all their little clothes have their own little spot. And so things don't get like into this big jumble anymore. So I do also feel like product can serve such a massive purpose when it's used correctly and functionally. I guess it's hard to ask a question because so much of this is so specific, because I'm like, how do you think through things you wouldn't think of? That question makes no sense. What I'm talking about is like, I ordered this Lazy Susan. I think about this Lazy Susan often, Kenika. It lives rent free in my mind. So I thought it was the perfect solution for our backstock condiments in our pantry. And I even measured it out. I was like, I'm going to measure this and make sure that it will fit and the condiments can still go in it. And it was great. But what I didn't account for was the space that it takes to lift up a condiment and get it out of the Lazy Susan, because that adds, you have to add the extra space that if the Lazy Susan has a lip on it, then you have to lift it up that far. And if there's another shelf above it, you're not gonna be able to get it out. And so I put this Lazy Susan, I was so excited. And then I was like, I can't get this dang ketchup out of the Lazy Susan, you know? So how can we avoid making mistakes like that? Or can we?
Well, okay. So the thing about a Lazy Susan is that you could use it anywhere. So the fact that it doesn't work there doesn't mean that it won't work in another space.
True.
So we have that. But yes, kind of thinking through product selection and what's gonna make the most sense for the space and like what actually is going to be contained in that organizer. So good effort. It's it just would be a matter of when you are thinking about like like a Lazy Susan, right? Would I get a Lazy Susan for bottles? Absolutely. I would try to find something that has like sections in it, but for the purpose of things that you're not going to be grabbing every day, right? This is just backstock. Even like just a small bin that can go in the back, because you don't need to see it. It doesn't need to be the most accessible, and whatever is in front of it, whenever you need the condiments in the back, just pull whatever is in front out, pull out the bin, right?
That makes sense.
But Lazy Susans, right? You have some that have like a thicker lip, some that don't have a lip. I think it just kind of, the space matters, where it's going to go, and like how often you need to get something. This is like where like that practicality and accessibility comes into play. If it's bulk items that you know you're not going to need often, it can kind of be tucked away in the back and you just grab for it when you need it. And so a bin would have been perfectly fine.
That makes so much sense to me. Actually, now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, a Lazy Susan's purpose is that you can like quickly access something. So it really shouldn't be housing things that you don't need to quickly access. I mean, that's a piece of organization advice right there when it comes to product. Okay, so let's say people do want this aesthetically pleasing home. what is the key to making a space, product or not? How do you make a space look good? I think people ask me this all the time, and I'm like, I am not a designer or an organizer. I just get rid of stuff. So how do you go about looking in a room and saying this would look pretty here, and this we should put the sweaters here because it's functional, but also it would look nice because of this size bin and this color bin, and how do you do that?
So with one thing I just want to say before I forget, white space, blank space, empty space is gold. So just because you have the space doesn't mean you have to fill it, right? So just sometimes having an empty shelf or a blank shelf or a shelf that has like 2 books and a faux plant next to like something that's organized is like gold. So just wanted to get that out there. But in terms of like knowing what type of like organizing products to get so that it looks nice, I like to create like a little Pinterest board for my clients, or have them create one, and they showcase like what style they like and kind of get a feel for if they like to see things kind of hidden in like a wood or hyacinth basket, or if they like the acrylic look and they want to see what's in each of the bins. So that kind of gives me direction in terms of what is going to work well for the client. Me personally, I like to put things that match, things that are like the same color, same style or size. I like to put those in the forefront, and things that maybe are not like the prettiest thing towards the back, just because it's going to create more of a uniform look. For instance, if we're talking about like your closet, so matching hangers, easy way to make your space look uniform, making sure that all of your clothes, your pants are hanging the same way, making things look a little bit more uniform, folding things the same way, and stacking, making sure like things are the same width. These are like very simple things that you can do to create a space that looks more aesthetically pleasing. And when it comes to, again, bringing an organizing product, it depends on your style. If you like things that are going to be see-through versus not, and how you organize what you're going to be putting in those things.
Yeah. I what I'm hearing is to pick one and go with it. Instead of being like, oh, I do like these acrylic baskets, but I also like the hyacinth or the what is it called? What's the word for that?
Like wicker.
Yeah,
hyacinth baskets too.
Is that the right word for it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can look at all those different ones, and I think those of us who are not, I would say I'm pretty decent at being able to make a space look pretty. I think that's why people ask me for advice, but I know how to make my space look pretty. You know what I mean? Like it's like people are like, can you braid my hair? I'm like, no, I can braid my hair. I can't do yours. And so I think what I'm hearing though is to choose one and stick with it, unless you have probably a professional organizer who knows how to mix and match things in a way that's going to look cohesive. The rest of us, like, just choose one and hop on that train and roll with it. I think is probably the safest bet for making sure everything looks nice. And like you said, know yourself, because if I had acrylic baskets in my closet, all you would see is clear baskets holding piles of stuff, because I am not one to perfectly fold my laundry. You know what I mean? Like, I will kind of fold it enough that it's not going to get wrinkles, and I'll toss my shorts in, So I need baskets or bins that you cannot see, because they're not going to have that pretty layered folded look inside of them. So that functionality piece there too. What are some types of containers that we can use if we don't have this budget for nice bins? Do you have any ideas of like kind of reusable containers that come to mind that most people might have around their house that are useful?
Shoe boxes always come in different sizes, different widths, lengths, depths. Use those to line the inside of your drawers. They work just fine. I've had clients cut boxes apart, like the lips to the box, and kind of like glue them together and use those as drawer dividers.
That's so smart.
Right? Or mason jars. I use mason jars literally for everything in my house. So I use it for my food. I just kind of slap a label on it. I use it for my spices. I use it for some of my arts and crafts like things, so like beads and all kinds of stuff. So like you can definitely repurpose what you have. But any type of box, usually you can find good use out of a box to organize different categories in your bedroom, or just throughout your home in general.
Yeah. I saw somewhere online about how someone uses like spaghetti jars and turned those into like a mason jar organizer, right?
Mhm.
You're already buying
Yep.
the darn spaghetti sauce. Might as well use
Right.
the jar. That's free. You
Yep.
don't have to go thrift or go to Target and get a jar for $9.99. You have it. It's
Right.
your spaghetti jar, or
Right.
I think I've said this on a podcast before, but I found that like using our old iPhone box, my husband didn't want to get rid of it. He's like, it's a great box. Actually, have you seen that? Oh, it's hilarious. The Holderness family, they have this like song, and it's called Pretty Good Box, and it's hilarious. It's like this not older couple, but like if they're in their 40s probably, and how hard it is to get rid of an Amazon box because it's a pretty good box. You want to keep it. And they wrote this whole song about it. It is hilarious. I'm going to link that in the show notes. I need to write that down because it is one of my favorite, like what I don't even know the word what for it would be, but it's a very funny song. So anyway, yes, we can use all those different things. Now I've lost my train of thought, but I used iPhone boxes because my husband didn't want to throw them away and to organize our Band-Aids. It was the perfect Band-Aid organizer. So
right. Like you can definitely I think that's the misconception. Like, oh, to get organized, I have to go spend all this money on organizing products. No, you don't. You do not. You don't. You can definitely repurpose what you have in your home to organize different things. If you have a lot of like mesh bags that you use for laundry, you can use those mesh bags to organize like your kids' toys. Maybe they have like Legos, like the big Lego blocks or whatever. Throw them in that mesh thing and then put them in a bin, right? So now they're not loose toys and you just pick up the mesh bag and now they have one set of toys, right?
wait a minute. I've
Yeah.
never thought of that because my biggest issue, I think any parent with young kids has, is I have my little bins and we've really decluttered. We don't have a lot of toys, but they, want their magnet tiles and their Duplos and whatever. And so I have them in their little cube, but then they just take the cube and then they just dump it. And then they dump the other cube and you're like, and some people will be like, well, keep it out of reach. And I'm like, but I want them to have access to it. I don't want to have to be involved with every decision they're making for play. But
Right.
there's one extra step. If you just put that in one of those mesh bags that has one of those little tightening things at the
Yep.
top, then they can't just dump it everywhere. I mean, they could, but it's one more step. And we know as parents, just to keep one more step of things being organized and clean is a win. That's such a good idea.
There you go. And then when
Thanks.
they're of age, hey, did you put your magnet tiles back in the bag? Like, just have them do it, right? So then it removes you from having to manage all of their toys. I literally, if my clients come to me and they're like, my kids' toys get on my nerves, I'm like, all right, let's get it, right? Because I already have a game plan for how to like structure the space, and it removes them from a lot of the maintenance of their play space, and it teaches the kids like how to upkeep their own stuff.
Yes, ma'am. And a bag, as you're saying this, as I'm talking through this, because I really have never thought about I have the bins, right? Like they can put it back in the bin, and they do, 70% of the time. But a bag is easier when things spread out. They're not dragging a bin all over the place, which for their little 3-year-old bodies is a little harder. They can just grab their little drawstring bag and drag it around the house to pick up all the ones that they have flung. And that you're like, how did this end up in the kitchen? I don't even know, but like it gets there, So that's really wonderful advice. So what are some tricks you might have for organizing a space that just doesn't have much room?
If you can do multi-purpose furniture, that is always going to be helpful. So for me, again, small space, my bedroom is a storage, or my bed in my bedroom is a storage bed, right? So I have pull-out drawers that I use for like all of my workout clothes. I also have like a trunk that serves as like my nightstand in my bedroom, and like a bench so you can sit on it, and it stores bed linen and it stores my work uniform and things like that. So multi-purpose furniture is going to be helpful. And then also maximizing your vertical space. So if you have a door, there should be a door rack on it, right? To maximize your vertical space. Or use shelves that you can use for decorative elements, but also storage for maybe you need to put bins on it, or baskets and stuff, compartmentalize whatever it is you need to organize. But small space, limited space, use vertical space, and use multi-purpose furniture.
Great advice. Yeah, because a basket can look really pretty and decorative, but you can also put stuff in it. So that is
Yeah.
great advice. The door organizers changed my life. So I
Right.
mentioned our current house that we're in is like, it's large, but it's also dumb. And so there's just not a lot of storage in it. And I couldn't figure out what to do with our wrapping paper. And I found a door like hanging wrapping paper situation. So now when you open, we have a closet door that is we call it our office closet door. We don't have an office, but it's just a door in the, a little closet in the hallway that might be used for linens for other people. But we put all our batteries and our, kid back stock of crafts and whatever in it. And on the back of the door now, you open it up and there is all of my wrapping paper and all my bags and all of my tissue paper right there. And instead of it being, I at the beginning just had it like on the bottom on the floor in the closet because I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And then I got this other organizer for the wrapping paper at one point it's like a stand-up bin. It's like tall and it's meant to put it in, but it was so bulky and it was such a pain and it was in the garage and it wasn't convenient. And so then I was just like, this door organizer just like changed my whole life. It made my life so much easier when I take my kids to 1,000 birthday parties a year.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. That's great
if
advice.
you have a door, there should be a door rack on it.
Period.
Period.
Yeah, the pantry too. I've seen that too online. We don't have one on our pantry. We don't need one, but yes, if we were out of space, that would be a good one to do. Alrighty. Oh, I was going to ask you for the pantry before I get to my last question. What are your thoughts when it comes to decanting everything and taking it all out of the box?
I will do it. I'll do it for clients, but I do it for myself for some things that I am buying consistently and I'm using it consistently because I will keep up with it. But it's a commitment. Honestly, it's a commitment. You have to be one of the people that will stick to decanting, refreshing, whatever it is that you decanted. Start small. And if you can keep up with the cereal, then do the spices and then do the flours and the sugars and all that stuff. But I don't know if I absolutely stand by it and love it. I'll do it if a client like really requests it, but I also mention to them like, you don't have to do this all the time if you want to do it. And so I don't know. I feel
know thyself.
Indifference. Yeah. No, there you go. Know thyself. Know if you're going to stick with it or not.
Man, I think so many of us, we have this. We're like, of course I'll stick with it because we have this idealized version of ourselves. We're like, future me will for sure pour out the cereal into this decanter, right? And then real you is like, that's a joke. There's no way. And, for me, I did it actually for about a year after I got that product, like I mentioned, from watching the home edit. And it looked really pretty. And I would decant like goldfish and pretzels and whatever else, like snack that my kids had at the time. And then like 2 types of cereal or whatever. I think I had 6 of these decanters. And I did it for a while, but I also did notice people like, oh, it keeps it fresher. And I was like, not particularly, because then there's airspace above it once you get down halfway. And unless you're eating it pretty quickly, it's not like a bag that you can roll up and use a chip clip to make sure there's no added air making it stale. So I actually found that we didn't get through it fast enough for it to stay fresh in a decanter. And so there's all these different things that you kind of come up against. And like you said, it works wonderful for some people and maybe it does keep their food a lot fresher. And then for me, I was like, I have 3 kids and this is not it for me. So we've gone back on that. But you know what I do? I do still take all of their the applesauce pouches, like any pouches or any bars. I do take those out of their boxes because I find that there'll be like 1 left in a box, like rattling around in the back. And I'm like, this is so dumb. And I didn't realize I needed to buy some more. Right. So I do take all those out and I put those, I have little thin acrylic bins so that I can just kind of put them there. And that way I know what I have. And also it's not annoying to have a gross looking torn apart box in there.
Yes, love that. Yes. If it's individually packed, I typically will take it out the box and like organize it for the same reasons. It's prettier and you can tell how many of what you have left.
Exactly. Especially when you have kids or my husband's pretty good about not putting things back or, making a note when we need something. But kids, they don't tell you. And then the next time they like throw a fit because they don't have whatever they want. I'm like, well, you should have told me that it wasn't in the box. So anyway, okay. So last big question I have before I get to the fun little 2 questions I ask at the end of every podcast. But last big question for you is, what is the key really to creating systems that don't wind up getting messy again?
Outside of function, practicality, and accessibility, I would say you, the person, which is probably not people's like favorite answer, but honestly, you have to develop the habit and really like the desire to maintain the space. So even if that means like getting rid of your counterproductive habits that you have of like, if you spilled something and you just walk away until tomorrow to wipe it off, like we got to get rid of that counterproductive habit. And like, just if it takes 5 minutes or less, just get it done now, right? Like that's a new habit that you're going to have to get accustomed to. I would honestly say it's just a matter of sticking to the systems and the structure that you established for yourself because you did it for a good reason.
I love that answer. That is practical because sometimes there's just no good answer. Like, I'm sorry, I do not have a magic wand. Sometimes you just have to have personal agency and do it. And that is, I know, easier said than done. And there might be different times in life that we're going through something hard, or we might have mental health issues or whatever it is. That doesn't make that statement easy, but it also doesn't make it less true that things don't magically happen. And so I appreciate that honest answer right there. Okie dokie. What is something that you are currently paring down right now?
What am I paring down? I am actually about to move. I'm buying a house. And so by the end of October, I should be in. So obviously, this will be a really big purge so that I'm not taking anything that I don't need to the new space. My couches. I have 2 dogs. So I adopted my last dog. Her name is Bailey. She is a boxer pit mix. And so she's like a legit dog. My dog that I've had since college is like a small little Shih Tzu. And so she's like 10 pounds. She's not problematic. Bailey, on the other hand, Bailey will go outside. She'll like roll in the dirt, do like full on army rolls in the dirt. And so she comes in the house with like just filth with dirt like embedded in her fur. And she comes in the house and she like rubs her body against the furniture.
Oh my gosh.
All the like the couches, I have 2 couches in my living room. They are done for. So those are getting trashed, scrapped because we need
new
like
house,
a faux leather couch. Yeah.
New furniture. Congrats on the house, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm also laughing because I do have a larger problematic dog, as you would say, and then I have my 5-pound Maltipoo who you're like,
right.
Really, what's the worst that can happen? They are so small.
Right.
Their footprint, it just doesn't, even if they were to get dirty, it's like, okay, you leave the smallest spot. But anyway, that's so funny. What is something that you are currently looking forward to?
Something I'm currently looking forward to, like on any level, personal, business.
Yeah, girl, anything. It can be as small as what you're eating for dinner tonight, or it can be as big as moving into your house. Anything you're thinking of.
Well, the house is very exciting. I'm very excited about that. But also, I get to go see my dad. My dad lives in Jamaica. So I'll be seeing him in December for the holidays. So that's fun.
That is fun. Oh my gosh. Do you go to Jamaica often?
I used to go once a year. Since the pandemic, it's been like a little spotty. So I've gone 2 times since the pandemic. So this will be the 3rd.
Oh, well, safe travels. That'll be so much fun.
Thank you.
All right. And where can everyone find you online to follow along or just to request your services if they're in the Atlanta area?
Awesome. Everything is Tidied by K. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, my website, it's all Tidied by K. My website is tidiedbyk.com. And again, my name is Kenika. So
awesome. Well, I'll be sure all of that will be in the show notes so people can easily go click on it and follow you or go to your website. And thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face. So thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at paring_down, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.